The prevailing notion that the feminine psyche is an enigma, a labyrinth of unknowable emotions and impulses, is a compelling narrative. Yet, it is ultimately a disempowering fiction. It suggests that the dynamics of human connection, particularly between men and women, are governed by chance or magic, rather than observable patterns of psychology and behavior. What if we shifted that perspective? What if we considered that the emotional currents, the social maneuvers, and the defensive strategies we encounter are not chaotic, but are instead expressions of fundamental human drives, drives that can be understood, navigated, and engaged with consciously? This exploration is not an attempt to diminish the profound complexity of individual human beings. Rather, it is an endeavor to move from a state of reactive confusion to one of proactive clarity. In any field of endeavor, whether it be business, athletics, or art, mastery begins with understanding the underlying principles. The realm of human relationships and attraction is no different. To operate without this understanding is to remain a passive participant, vulnerable to every shift in the wind. True agency comes from comprehension. If this perspective resonates with you, consider joining this ongoing exploration. Subscribing ensures you don't miss the deeper dives into principles that are rarely discussed openly, yet shape so much of our daily interactions. Let's begin with one of the most potent and universal drivers: the profound desire for specific recognition. This goes far beyond the generic wish to be liked or loved. At its core is a hunger to be perceived not just broadly, but with pinpoint accuracy, to have one's unique constellation of traits, contradictions, and subtleties seen and articulated by another. This is the difference between being told a room is beautiful and having someone point out the unique play of light across a particular crack in the wall, a detail you'd felt but never named. The power in this dynamic lies not in blanket affirmation, but in targeted observation. It is the quiet remark that bypasses the superficial. I notice you don't just get quiet when you're upset. You get quiet when you're processing something truly meaningful, as if you need to protect the feeling from too much noise. This isn't flattery, it's a form of respectful decoding. When you demonstrate an ability to perceive and verbalize these nuanced layers of a person's character, you accomplish something remarkable. You position yourself as a unique lens through which they can see themselves more clearly. You offer not just attention, but meaningful attention. The psychological effect is profound. It creates what we might call an open loop of curiosity. By identifying a pattern and not exhaustively explaining it, you invite the other person into a process of self-reflection that is, by necessity, tied to you. They begin to wonder, how does he see this? What else has he noticed? In seeking the answers, their focus and cognitive energy orient increasingly toward you. You become not just another admirer, but a curator of their self-awareness. Closely linked is the complex language of indirect emotional signaling. People, often by social conditioning or self-protection, rarely communicate vulnerabilities in a straightforward manner. A feeling of neglect or insecurity is seldom packaged as a raw, open request. Instead, it is frequently encoded within what sounds like a critique or a casual observation. A comment like, "You seem different lately," or "We never talk like we used to," is often less an accusation and more a probe, a tentative test of the emotional connection stability. The common, instinctive reaction is to become defensive, to explain oneself, or to urgently overcorrect. This reactive stance, while understandable, often surrenders emotional footing. It communicates that your equilibrium can be disrupted by a subtle cue. The more centered approach involves listening to the subtext. What is the core question being asked? It is almost always a version of, "Do I still hold significance? Is our connection secure?" Responding effectively doesn't mean capitulating to the surface complaint. It means addressing the underlying concern from a position of unshaken calm. A response might be, "It's interesting you feel that shift. I've been immersed in some projects, but my regard hasn't changed." Or, more poetically, sometimes a connection deepens into a quieter frequency. That doesn't mean the signal is gone. This accomplishes several things simultaneously. It validates their feeling without confirming a negative narrative. It demonstrates emotional stability, and it reframes the situation. Furthermore, this indirect signal is itself valuable data. It reveals precisely where the other person's sense of security, is currently fragile. With that intelligence, you can navigate with informed precision, offering reassurance where truly needed or allowing for healthy, independence-building space. I'm genuinely interested in your experiences. Have you ever been on either side of this dynamic, sending or receiving these indirect signals? What was the outcome? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This dialogue is how we all learn. This brings us to a potent psychological principle: engagement through calibrated uncertainty. The human nervous system is not designed for monotony. It orients toward and is stimulated by patterns that contain variation and gradient. While absolute predictability provides comfort, it often does so at the expense of sustained fascination. What truly captivates attention and fuels desire is not the guarantee of possession, but the compelling, low-grade tension of the not quite fully possessed. This is not about game playing or manufactured drama. It is about the inherent magnetism of a person who maintains a core of autonomous purpose. It is the difference between a book whose ending is known and one that reveals deeper layers with each chapter, suggesting there are more to come. The application is in the rhythm of interaction. It is the natural, unforced oscillation between warm, focused presence and equally purposeful, self-directed absence. You are fully engaged when present. Then you naturally return to the orbit of your own mission, interests, and solitude. This creates a dynamic where your attention is a valued occurrence, not a constant entitlement. The other person is never permitted to fully settle into the assumption of complete, effortless ownership of your focus. This subtle, ongoing calibration prevents the stagnation that can breed indifference. It is important to distinguish this from inconsistency or neglect. The foundation must be one of inherent reliability and respect. The variation is in the texture of engagement, not in fundamental character. You become like the tide, reliable in your rhythm, but dynamic in your presence. This natural ebb and flow sustains interest and prevents the emotional complacency that can quietly erode attraction. From this springs a related phenomenon: the allure of the unresolved. There is a peculiar inertia to things that are fully completed, fully understood, fully mastered. The mind, once it has categorized and filed something away, tends to move on. Lasting fascination is often anchored in a sense of continuing discovery. This means preserving a sense of personal depth that is not immediately exhaustible. It is the practice of measured revelation, sharing meaningful aspects of oneself while maintaining a natural, healthy boundary of privacy. You are an open book in terms of character, but a book written in a language that reveals new subtleties upon each reading. You might share a principle that guides you, but not every single thought that principle ever generated. You might reveal a passion, but not immediately every dream attached to it. These deliberate, unhurried layers create what we can think of as psychological depth. The other person is invited to be an explorer, not a mere tourist. They invest mental energy in piecing together the mosaic of who you are, and in that investment, a deeper form of attachment is forged. The goal is not to be cryptic, but to be substantive, to have a richness of character that cannot be absorbed in a single glance. This transforms the dynamic from one of consumption to one of engagement. If this breakdown is providing you with a new lens to view your interactions, please hit the like button. It helps guide the creation of more content that cuts through the noise and focuses on actionable understanding. Central to navigating all these dynamics is the cultivation of inner sovereignty. This is perhaps the most critical and most misconstrued principle. Sovereignty is not aloofness, arrogance, or emotional withdrawal. It is the foundational state of being where your sense of worth, purpose, and stability is internally generated and maintained. It is the antithesis of neediness. A sovereign individual engages with others from a place of genuine interest and choice, not from a void that needs to be filled. This is magnetic because it communicates strength, self-sufficiency, and freedom. When you interact without the hidden agenda of seeking validation, you offer a clean, powerful connection. Your attention becomes a gift, not a demand. Your presence is sought because it is enriching, not because it is clingy. This sovereignty allows you to be warm without being desperate, interested without being invested in a specific outcome, and firm in your boundaries without being harsh. It is the bedrock upon which all other attractive qualities are built. Without it, Any technique is merely a performance that will eventually crack under pressure. With it, your actions are authentic expressions of a solid self. This foundation naturally leads to interactions that test relational equilibrium. When an individual is accustomed to wielding a certain type of social or personal influence, they may unconsciously test new connections to confirm their own efficacy. A playful challenge, a pointed question, a flirtatious remark. These can sometimes be less about genuine interest in you and more about gauging their own impact. The common trap is to either fold immediately, providing the expected reactive validation, or to become rigid and hostile. The sovereign path is different. It involves acknowledging the maneuver without being ensnared by its intended effect. You might respond with amused grace, deflecting the hook while maintaining your center. That's an interesting way to try to read someone. Or, you might simply receive it with a calm smile and smoothly pivot the conversation to more substantive ground. What you communicate is, I see your tactic, and I am unaffected by it in the way you anticipated. This does not bruise the ego so much as it respectfully challenges it to engage on a higher, more authentic plane. It signals that you are not easily swayed by superficial games, and that to earn your genuine engagement, one must operate from a place of authenticity. This can transform a dynamic based on testing into one based on mutual respect. Don't keep this knowledge to yourself. If you know someone who would benefit from this kind of clarity, a friend, a brother, a teammate, share this with them. Real change often starts with a single conversation. In some relational patterns, we can observe a conditioning toward intensity. For various reasons, some individuals have developed a neurological association between interpersonal drama and feelings of connection. The highs of conflict and the catharsis of reconciliation can create a powerful, if unhealthy, addictive cycle. The brain mistakes this roller coaster for passion. Understanding this is crucial, not so you can replicate the chaos, but so you can consciously offer a superior alternative, purposeful dynamism. This is the practice of introducing healthy, engaging variation without toxicity. It is the difference between creating anxiety and creating intrigue. Purposeful dynamism might involve following a deeply connected, vulnerable conversation with a period of thoughtful, comfortable silence, or independent activity. It might mean introducing a novel shared experience that breaks routine. It is the conscious avoidance of emotional flatlining. You provide a relationship landscape that has hills and valleys of genuine emotional and intellectual exchange, not the artificial peaks and troughs of manufactured drama. You become a source of stable excitement, which is far more sustainable and nourishing than unstable chaos. A frequent point of confusion lies in distinguishing between authentic affinity and the reflex for validation. Attraction is a complex emotion, and it can sometimes be conflated with the desire to simply be found attractive. Interest in you can occasionally be a byproduct of someone's need to confirm their own desirability. The key differentiator often lies in the nature of the pursuit. Is the interest focused on drawing a reaction from you, or on genuinely learning about you? The sovereign individual, by virtue of his non-reactive stability, acts as a filter. He does not leap to provide the easy ego boost. Instead, he engages with the substance behind the signal. By not rewarding the mere seeking of validation, but instead rewarding genuine curiosity and substantive interaction, he elevates the nature of the connection. He communicates, subtly, that his interest is earned through authenticity, not provoked by performance. Beyond words, immense power resides in embodied composure. Communication is overwhelmingly nonverbal. Your posture, your eye contact, the pace of your speech, your comfort with silence. These broadcast your internal state far more than your chosen vocabulary. A man who is grounded and present communicates a universe of information. His calm demeanor suggests unshakable confidence. His attentive listening conveys deep respect. His ability to be still in a moment speaks of inner peace. This embodied composure is disarming. It creates a psychological space where others feel safe to lower their own guards, not because they are being overpowered, but because they are in the presence of someone who is powerfully at ease. This is the physical manifestation of inner sovereignty. Cultivating this, through mindfulness, self-discipline, and presence, is perhaps the most direct way to influence the tone and depth of any interaction. We must also understand the hierarchy of influence in decision-making. While we pride ourselves on rationality, most significant decisions, especially in the realm of relationships, are made in the emotional centers of the brain. Logic is then employed post hoc to justify the choice. Therefore, the most effective path to building a lasting connection is not to build a logical case for yourself, but to become the consistent source of positive, compelling emotional states. When your presence is associated with feelings of being understood, of excitement, of peace, of challenge, and of respect, you create an emotional anchor. The logical mind will then assemble all the reasons why you are the right choice. Master the emotional landscape, and the rational justifications will follow organically. Furthermore, contextual intelligence cannot be ignored. How you operate within a social ecosystem, how you treat others, how you handle authority and conflict, how you contribute to a group's dynamic, is a loud testament to your character. Demonstrating respect, empathy, and leadership in social situations signals that you are a person of value who understands complex human systems. It shows that a connection with you would be integrative and enriching to someone's broader life, not isolating. This social proof is a powerful, often silent, amplifier of your credibility and attractiveness. Intertwined with all this is the concept of narrative control. Every social interaction operates within an implicit framework, a silent story about what is happening. Is this a negotiation? A flirtation? A power struggle? The person who can calmly, consistently define and maintain a healthy, constructive frame controls the direction of the interaction. If met with a passive-aggressive test, reframing it as a moment of humor, the classic probing question, I award you full points for style, dismantles its intended effect and sets a new, more positive tone. Maintaining a frame of mutual respect, curiosity, and positive intent allows you to steer interactions away from pettiness and toward substance. This journey is a continuous one. If you're committed to developing this kind of mastery in your own life, subscribing is the best way to stay on the path. We're building a community focused on growth, not games. Ultimately, this entire exploration must be rooted in authentic intention and integrity. This is not a manual for manipulation. It is a framework for understanding. The so-called weaknesses discussed are not flaws to be exploited, but universal human needs and patterns expressed through individual behavior. The goal of understanding them is not to control others, but to cease being controlled by ignorance. It is to enable you to build connections that are conscious, reciprocal, and deeply fulfilling. The highest form of power is self-mastery, the ability to know yourself, govern your own reactions, and move through the world with purpose and principle. When you achieve this, you naturally attract individuals and opportunities of the highest caliber. You move from being a puzzle to being a solver, from being confused by the map to drawing it yourself. The mystery dissipates, not because people become simple, but because you have developed the clarity, empathy, and strength to engage with complexity without fear. This is the true objective, not to have power over anyone else, but to have such complete command over your own life that you become a beacon for genuine connection and a catalyst for mutual growth. Your perspective is vital to this conversation. What part of this resonated most strongly with you? What challenges are you facing in applying these principles? Let's continue the discussion in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more insights that bridge ancient wisdom and modern living.